Hey, I'm Geeky Pastimes, and a massive thanks to EA for inviting me to a special event where we got to play the Battlefield 2042 beta a couple of days early for about 3 hours to get a sense of what it's like and get these videos ready for when the open beta goes live. Now, we got to play the exact same beta that you're going to play. We had a few differences, so like we weren't using our own accounts, we were using ones provided by EA, which made squadding up and things like that very, very difficult. But gameplay-wise and visuals and performance and everything like that, this was the same beta as what you're going to play. Now, you've seen the title. You probably got a sense of what I'm going to say. I'm very worried about Battlefield 2042. I didn't think the beta was very good. And in this video, I'm going to explain the things I'm worried about and kind of discuss where I'm thinking about the game at the moment. So, just a quick disclaimer straight away. I was playing this pretty much by myself. I wasn't communicating with squads or anything like that. Like I said, it was hard to invite people, and obviously there was a small pool of people invited in the first place. So, I was playing pretty much solo. That's not the way I like to play games. I don't like playing Warzone solo. I don't normally like playing Battlefield games in the past solo. I tend to play with a group of friends. So when we're playing the open beta and we can play it all together, maybe I'll have a much better time. That could be a big part of it. Also, I'm not that good at Battlefield. Like, I've been playing Battlefield since Battlefield 2. I never really played 1942, but I've been playing since Battlefield 2. And I've got a lot of experience with the franchise, but I've never been, like, amazing at it. I've never been the sort of person who plays, like, 10 hours a day every day at it, other than maybe Bad Company 2. I did play a huge amount of that. But yeah, so I'm not incredible, so I'm sure you'll get a very different perspective from my point of view compared to someone who's amazing at the game. Maybe they had fun if they were going on, like, 30, 40 kill streaks and absolutely dominating lobbies. I wasn't doing that. I had a couple of decent kill streaks, I had some good kills, like I had some good fights, I messed around with the vehicles, messed around on foot, did a lot of playing the objective, playing with a squad, doing all of that kind of thing. But yeah, like I don't want people watching the gameplay and being like, oh well, you didn't like the game because you're trash at it. Yeah, I know I'm not brilliant at the game, but this is how I felt about it. I think I'm a very average Battlefield player, so I'm probably representative of a lot of people watching this video, hopefully. The other big disclaimer is that this build was 2 months old. So they said it's about 2 months old, and obviously what they do when they make a beta is they sort of branch it off at some point so they can make sure that this build is stable and good enough to like go out for everyone to play on while they carry on developing the main build of the game. So that means some of the stuff I'm talking about could be fixed. Now I did ask in the question and answer, could they give some examples of some of the big things that have been fixed, because I didn't want to be like criticizing stuff that they've already thought of, they've already fixed, and it won't end up mattering. But when I asked that question, they were talking about things like the UI, they were talking about balance, they were talking about things that I think are relatively minor. So as I'm going through this, I'll talk about whether I think they're going to change this or not. But a lot of my biggest concerns, they didn't mention that they'd changed that at all, so I'm starting to think this is more of a problem with the core game. So let's get on to some of the positives to begin with. There are some things that are fun. The tornado was absolutely awesome. Like, the tornado is an incredible thing. It comes in randomly. I think during the beta it's meant to be set to like 10%, something like that, 10% of games. So there's a chance that you'll get bad weather, that for me was about a third of my games. And then there's a 10% chance that you'll get this tornado coming in. I played for 3 hours and only saw it once. I quite like that. I quite like that it's a big event if it does happen. Like, it's exciting if it does happen. That's pretty cool. It looks really good. There's some cool effects, like it starts raining if the tornado's nearby. And when you're actually right by the tornado, the rain's like going sideways as if it's blown by wind. That's really cool. It picks up players. It actually like pulled me through a building, which was kind of cool. Yeah, I really enjoyed the tornado. That was exactly as awesome as it looked in that trailer that they showed off at the beginning. Graphically as well, it looks pretty nice sometimes in a way that Frostbite often does. I didn't think it looked like a massive step up from games like Battlefield 5 or Battlefield 1. It looked like kind of more of the same, but in a modern setting. But, you know, it looks fine. There's some stuff that looks rubbish. So, like, the water looks terrible. And the destruction elements. So when, you know, like, trees are knocked down or bits of building are knocked over and stuff like that. That looks pretty bad at the moment. Like, the stuff bounces around a weird way. And that brings me on to probably my biggest complaint about my time with the open beta so far, and that is the physics. Everything feels super floaty and detached from the world in a way that Battlefield 5 didn't. One of the things I've always loved about Battlefield, and I've talked about this in other videos, is the fact that everything feels so connected to the world. Like, everything feels really solid. You know, Call of Duty, you're very fast, you're sort of sliding and jumping over everything. Battlefield feels a lot more visceral, like you're really kind of a part of the environment, a part of the kind of buildings or landscapes that you're there. This didn't feel like that at all. So like vehicles seem to sort of skate around a little bit. Players, like animations kind of clip through stuff or float near stuff. Like it doesn't seem really connected to it. Air vehicles were really terrible. Like you'd see jets just doing ridiculous things as if there's like no forces on them. It doesn't feel when you're flying anything the way that you'd expect a vehicle to feel, and that's a big concern. Like it just doesn't feel satisfying at all, and it's really bizarre, you know, the number of times I saw jets just like tumbling through the air in a really bizarre way. It completely breaks any kind of immersion, and that really worries me. Like that's something that I was really hoping they were going to say, oh yeah, the physics is a bit broken at the moment, but we fixed that, but they didn't mention it at all. They might have fixed it, like, you know, holding out a bit of hope still, but it really doesn't seem great at the moment at all. In terms of destruction, there's very little destruction. It's gone back to that kind of Bad Company 1 destruction, where kind of you can shoot a wall and you'll blow a hole in it, then you can shoot the wall next to it and you'll blow the exact same hole in that wall. So it doesn't look realistic at all. It looks really bizarre. It's not like Bad Company 2 where you had like buildings collapsing and things like that. I didn't see any of that in this map. There's some stuff like I saw these big like canister type things, storage tanks, where you could shoot them and nothing would happen to them at all. Then randomly they'd just like fall in half. They'd just sort of almost, it looked like they'd swapped out with a model of something that was destroyed. It just really wasn't fun destruction. It wasn't great. And things like the rocket, when that explodes, it explodes in the same way every single time. Like all of the pieces land in the exact same place every time. So yeah, like the physics really were worrying. Like they didn't feel fun at all. They didn't feel like immersive at all, and it just didn't, to me, that side of it didn't really feel like Battlefield. That I didn't get the same sense I had with Battlefield 1.5 that I really enjoyed about those games, that sense of being a part of that world, so that was a big problem. In terms of the gunplay, it feels okay. Like the guns are all quite different, and like shooting at a distance is interesting. There's a lot more bullet drops than there is in something like Call of Duty, but it definitely lacks punch. Like I always feel Battlefield games, the guns feel really meaty and really powerful, and it didn't have that at all. And I think a big part of that is audio, that like the audio feels kind of weak. Everything seems a little bit high pitched maybe. You're lacking that bass that you really like in the Battlefield games. That's something that could easily change, I'm sure. That could just be a sound balance mixing. Maybe there's even options in the menu somewhere where you can change stuff like that. But at the moment, like when you're shooting stuff, it didn't feel like you were getting much feedback when you're shooting people. And when you're getting shot, it didn't, like, you could barely tell. You just suddenly like drop down dead. So that's kind of worrying. The guns, like I said, did feel satisfying to use. They said they're going to change the balance a lot, that the balance isn't, like, they didn't have much data when they created this build. And that's perfectly fine. You know, there's a lot of things that sometimes the snipers feel like you're doing absolutely no damage to people when you're shooting them from a long way away. And some of the guns like the SMGs and shotguns feel massively underpowered compared to the assault rifles. But we'll see what they do with the proper game once it launches. The rocket launch itself, which is like the big event of this map other than a tornado, the rocket launch felt rubbish. Like that was just something that's basically a non-event. It's so underwhelming. Like if the rocket launches, it's not particularly loud, which, you know, the one thing everyone says about rocket launching is that it's insanely loud. It doesn't seem to be particularly loud. It just kind of goes up and there's a bit of a smoke cloud, which is kind of cool. The smoke cloud around it does make for an interesting kind of change to the environment, but it only lasts a little while. I think it only lasts like 30 seconds, which is really strange. If it explodes, you get kind of the same smoke cloud, and then you get some bits of debris drop about. But if you were like a little way away from the rocket, so if you're up on the hills, or if you're over in the coolant farm, which is on the other side of the hills, on the other side of the tunnel, you probably wouldn't even notice that anything had happened. It's like really not particularly powerful. The tornado is like this big thing that you can see everywhere on the map. It seems really substantial, like it changes the weather and everything like that. The rocket launch is just kind of a thing that after the first time you've seen it, you'll be like, oh, okay, and then move on and just forget about it. To the point where even in these playtests, you know, we had 3 hours to play. I saw people really making an effort to destroy the rocket at the beginning of the first couple of times we played the game. And then basically everyone seemed to just kind of ignore it in a lot of the other games that we played, which seems really strange. And also, like, the way you attack it, you can just attack it with whatever kind of weapons you want. Explosives seem to work better, so like rockets or tank shells, things like that. And like, sometimes they don't seem to do much, sometimes they'll knock some of the kind of dry ice off the edge of it. Sometimes it seems like after you've done a certain amount of damage to it, a hole will appear, then after you've done another amount of damage to it, another hole will appear. Then when it's due to launch, it will just kind of decide whether it's going to explode or launch, I think, based on how much damage has been done to it. It's a weird system where like it doesn't feel very reactive to what's going on. It's not like, oh, you hit it with something really hard, like you fly a jet into it and that causes it to explode. Instead it's like, okay, there's a counter somewhere counting up how much damage done, and then at a set time it's either going to explode or take off. I was obviously a bit disappointed because I was really hoping there was going to be some kind of thing that players had to do to launch it, but there's not. It just goes at a certain time. So yeah, that's a little bit disappointing. Hopefully the polish that they're going to be adding, like I said, it's 2 months old, they've had 2 months to work on it already, they've got about another month until the game launches. Hopefully that's going to bring it up to the standard we expect. But with the release date being that close and they're showing so little gameplay, it makes me really worry. In the presentation they did show us another little thing where they were like, oh, we want to show you what the build looks like now. And they showed us this cool little video where it went through pretty much all of the maps, I think. One after one, but it wasn't gameplay, it was just kind of the environment. It was just showing us what the environment looks like with no players or anything like that going on. And this really worries me, like how close we are and how little we're seeing of it, and kind of how underwhelming the beta is. Obviously, it's nice to give them the benefit of the doubt, and it's nice to think like, oh no, they know what they're doing, like they've made a load of incredible games in the past, this one's going to be incredible too. But we kind of have to go off the stuff we've seen. Like, if we'd played the beta and it'd been underwhelming, but then they had shown a video saying, but this is what it looks like now, and shown a load of gameplay of the same kind of stuff, and shown, okay, the animations are better, okay, the physics are better on the vehicles, stuff like that, then I wouldn't be worried. But the fact that they still can't show anything that makes it look much better than what it's like now, that's the thing that really concerns me. It's also kind of hard to compare it to other games, and I feel like it's probably not a good idea to always compare it to other games. So like, obviously we've had a beta or a flight or an alpha for this and Halo Infinite and Call of Duty Vanguard, the sort of 3 big FPS games that are launching this year. And the Halo Infinite flight and Call of Duty Vanguard alpha and beta felt really polished, they felt really solid, they were loads and loads of fun. I had an absolute blast with both of them, and they both happened a lot further out from their release date. So this like naturally makes me worry a little bit more about Battlefield 2042. But obviously they could just have a different development plan, they could just have a different schedule, so maybe things are in a different position. Maybe this is more to actually get data for Battlefield rather than showing us what it's like. Although in the presentation they did say something about like, oh, you get a sense of what the gameplay is like with this beta, you get like a good sense of how it's going to play. It's like, if this is how it's going to play, I'm a bit worried. So obviously I will be playing the early access beta this week. Like, I'm still going to play it, I'm still going to try and get some, you know, friends online so we can squad up, because I think it'll be a lot more fun if I'm playing with people I know. And, you know, I won't just be playing against people who are really good at Battlefield, because obviously I was playing against a load of Battlefield streamers and content creators, so maybe I'll have a better time if I'm, you know, not in the bottom end of the skill level. Maybe I'll be in the middle or closer to the top, and that'll mean that I'll have a better time. We'll see. But at the moment, I thought it was important just to say I'm a little bit worried about Battlefield 2042. I hope I'm wrong. I hope they turn things around. I hope the finished game is way, way better than this. But right now, that's how I feel about it. So if you want to see me playing in beta, if you want to ask any questions about it or anything like that, you can check me out on Twitch, twitch.tv/Geeky Pastimes. If you're watching this video when it goes live, I'll probably be streaming right now, so you can head on over there and check me out while I'm streaming. If I'm not streaming, just leave me a follow and then you'll get notified when I go live. Let me know in the comments if you've got any questions about the beta, anything that you want me to check out while I'm streaming, or if you want me to clarify any of these points, or you want to argue against any of these points. I'd be really interested to have a discussion about this, because I think there will be a lot of discussion about it. I've seen lots of people who have been absolutely loving this. Lots of people were really, really positive about the beta when we were playing it, so I'm sure there'll be loads of people who are really happy with this. It'll be interesting to see what people think. So thank you very much for watching, and goodbye.
Objectives secured. Charlie sector under control. The majority of sectors are under